Hey guys, Casey here. Welcome back to the channel. This week we finish up the install on the Xceleratr Racing Trans Am brake kit. Alright guys, getting ready to go back together on our brake kit here. So what I'm doing, if you haven't seen the previous videos, is a Trans Am style brake kit. This is the Boss 302 handbook brake conversion modernized slightly. What it is giant 4-piston Kelsey Hayes calipers from a Lincoln Continental and 12 by 1¼ inch rotors. They're just absolutely massive. And it's what most of the B production vintage racing cars run today, even though most of the Shelbys ran the smaller Kelsey Hayes setup that I just took off of here. I went with Xceleratr Racing's kit. I'm not sponsored by these guys in any way, but Sean makes you feel like you are. He's an awesome dude. I'll get into how he helped design this kit specifically one-off for this car. And I don't think it's something that he does every day, but I must have tugged on his heartstrings a little bit and he helped me out. But the reason that I wanted to go with Sean before any of that is this beautiful caliper bracket that he has manufactured. It's a CNC billet steel bracket, and it's absolutely beefy. It weighs about 1 pound, and it's just a really nice piece. I mean, all the machining is gorgeous. The radiuses and the fillets, really, really neat piece. So this is the foundation of the kit, and once you have your spindle installed, this is what goes on first. So it goes right over the spindle. So my kit, as you can see, uses these countersunk bolts on the top corner. The reason for that is because what Sean helped me do, I wanted to run a Chevy pattern wheel on this car. So we didn't use the standard hub that comes in this kit, and instead we used a hub from Bear Racing. The Bear Racing hub is billet, and it has both Chevy and Ford pattern machined into it. So basically get a bolt set in place, get it started. Sean's instructions don't say to do it, but I like to use blue thread locker on these. And you don't need a lot because he uses a serrated style lock nut as well. Basically just a little dab of blue, can't hurt. Throw that in. It helps if you get your blue Loctite in the area that the threads are actually going to interact with it. There we go. Down. Right here. So here's a trick when you're using these serrated style lock nuts. Don't spin the nut as you're tightening up. You want to hold the nut from spinning. That way the serrations dig in to the back side of whatever you're tightening up against. And they actually do their job. So first we snug everything up. Then the torque spec on these is 40 foot-pounds. I like to torque everything that I touch in 3 stages. So we're going to start at 20, then go to 30, then to 40. Also important to work in a crisscross pattern anytime you're torquing something. So set to 20. All right, there's one. So that's 20. Now we go up to 30 and hit the same pattern again. Anytime you're working with Loctite, you need to work fast because the Loctite does cure pretty quick. And you want to be at full torque before it cures fully. So now we're at 40. All right. And then I always like to go around one final time at the full torque spec, just in case anything settled. This time we don't have to go in a crisscross pattern. So this is a segment of my videos that I like to call, What's Casey Drinking? This week it's Calcutta Clipper Pale Ale from Moonlight Brewing Company. You might know Moonlight, most famous for their Death and Taxes black lager. I have to say, I don't really care for the Calcutta Clipper that much. Think Trumer Pilsner, but without as much flavor and a little bit more bitter. I don't like it. In fact, I've poured 2 of these out, but it might make my turkey taste better. Here's hoping. So the hub is really the magic part of this package here. This is a hub from Bear Racing, billet aluminum. It is absolutely massive and beefy as well. I've got a hub-centric ring that I made that I'll show you guys in a little bit. The Bear hubs are nice. They're not cheap, but they come with the bearings and seals installed, all pre-greased, ready to go. So that's kind of fun. You just literally stick them on. They have both patterns because I guess the Mustang 2 hub is quite similar to the vintage Mustang hub. They have call for both Ford and Chevy patterns. So I've got my 1/2 inch 20 tap bolts installed in the 4 3/4 inch Chevy pattern so that I can run these torque thrust wheels. I went through and I torqued them all. I think I did 90 foot-pounds. Marked my bolts so that I don't lose track. Anyway, basically you just pop the covers off of these things. A little bit of Redline synthetic grease, which is what they say in their instructions they use to pack the bearings. Basically, I just want to get a little bit on the seal surface so that I don't snag the seal going back on. And then carefully slide her over. Like a glove. Now Sean's hub installation directions are different than Bear's. And even though I'm using Sean's kit, since I'm using Bear's hub, I'm gonna follow their installation instructions for the hub. Before I do anything, I just like to basically spin the hub over by hand a bunch, snug it by hand, back it off, snug it by hand, spin it. So Bear's instructions say that while spinning the hub, you want to torque the nut between 5 and 10 foot-pounds. And you can definitely feel a drag once you hit that point. And then they want you to back it off. And then do it again. Back it off again. And we're just going to keep doing this. Because you truly can't overdo it. All right, so now that we've done this a few times, back off our nut, listen for our end play. Snug it up a little bit. Still a little bit of end play. Snug it up a little bit more. All right. No end play. Back it off a little bit. End play. Little teeny bit of end play. No end play. So once we hit no end play, we want to tighten it 1/16 of a turn. So how far is the 16th? Well, 90 degrees is a quarter. 45 degrees is an eighth. So just less than an eighth. Right there. That's just a little bit of bearing preload then. And now let's check and see if we can line up the cotter pin, and we can perfectly. Line up a cotter pin. Throw our cotter pin in. Bob's your uncle. All right, so with the hub installed, cotter pin installed, the bare hub is actually a cool piece. Billet aluminum. It's retained with just an O-ring. It's got an O-ring groove inside the hub that receives it. Put a little bit of grease on the O-ring so that it doesn't snag going on, and you just kind of gotta, there it is. And you give it a little spin just to kind of help the O-ring find its home once it's on. And that's that. Not going anywhere. So the rotors from Streeter Track, they come pre-installed on the hats, safety wire in place. Sean does a really nice job of safety wiring them. They have 3 patterns in them, everything from 5 on 4.5 to 5 on 5 inch, which is like a big truck pattern. And then they have a retention bolt. So basically, should go on just like that. So the rotor hat is retained to the hub with a single countersunk socket cap screw. Just want to start it. I don't want to fully tighten it because this is where my hub-centric spacer comes in. Now this registers to the hub. It also catches the ID of the rotor, and then it's got a step in it for the center bore on the wheel. And it should slide right on. That's it. It's nice and snug. And I think snug is good enough for this guy. It's going into aluminum, so you don't want to over tighten it. Just like that. And that is the rotor install. So we're coming right along here. All right, so at this point, I like to get a little bit of brake clean and give my rotor a nice wipe down. That's nice and clean. I'm nice and high. And here is the caliper, the heart of this braking system. I want to say this is like a 1967 and up Lincoln caliper. I mean, this thing weighs 10, 15 pounds. It's massive, giant pistons. Takes a super thick pad. This one is loaded with Porterfield R4S vintage compound pads. They are a race pad that has an excellent coefficient of friction at low temperatures, so they will work on the street. Probably the biggest drawback to running something like this on a car that's going to see some street miles is they're going to dust like crazy, but they're going to stop like crazy too. Sean's kit comes with arbor shims, and it's very important that you figure out the spacing for the caliper so that the rotor is centered perfectly in between the pads. Otherwise, there's a potential that the car is gonna the braking is gonna be uneven. Got a fly buzzing around in here. On the other side, I used 1 arbor shim per side to get everything lined up. So here's hoping that that's going to work on this side as well. I think what I'll do is I'll swing it in place with just a bolt for now. That allows the caliper to float in space, and I can come through with my arbor shim on the bottom. All right. It's looking like this side's going to be a one shim situation as well. I'm going to back my top bolt out. Grab another shim. And just need to snug them up. And hopefully the camera picks up on this here, but that is perfectly centered. So that's what you're looking for right there. So now that I've established my shim stack, I'll take the bolts back off, hit them with a little bit of red Loctite, install my lock washers, and send them home. So before I finalize my mounting of my caliper, what I've gone ahead and done here is I've jacked the car up to roughly ride height. I've got my shock reinstalled. And I just want to basically move the steering through its full range of motion and see if anything is hitting. I'm going to get in here and look. And I've got a little contact between the caliper and the lower control arm, but that seems to be full steering angle to me. More than. Yeah, so we are golden there. And then, you know, I'm gonna have to change out my blocks of wood, and I wanna jack it up to full compression and check it, and then drop it down to full droop and check it, and just make sure that throughout the range of motion, I'm not gonna have any unexpected contact anywhere that could, you know, cause you to lose control going into a corner if the car becomes unsettled. I think this is where I'm gonna leave you guys this week, because I have to figure out a bump steer gauge for this thing and dial in the bump steer. And I might have to make some new bump steer arms. The ones that Cobra Automotive sent me feel a little short, so we'll have to see how that all pans out. That's gonna be another episode. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this week, you guys. I really appreciate it. I hope you liked this look at how the Xceleratr Trans Am Racing disc brake kit installs on a vintage Mustang. Very cool kit. I can't wait to get this thing hooked up. I would have shown you the lines. They've sent me really beautiful stainless steel lines, but I have to change my hard line before I install those. Maybe we'll pick that up in another video too. Anyway, thanks for watching this week, you guys. Be sure to hit that like button if you like what you saw in today's video. Dislike button if you didn't. Hit me up in the comments to let me know what you want to see more of in future videos. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, because that helps me keep the content coming to you week after week. All right, thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Blah, blah, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Work, work, work.